What's good, YouTube? American Arts did it again. Shout out to the subscribers, shout out to the viewers. In this presentation, I'm going to be discussing what is law of occupation. As you know, as you should be aware that, you've been under occupation since 1492. For the ancestral lineage from the Americas, according to your genealogy, that side of your ancestry has been under military occupation since 1492. Right, not only this side, but the other side of the ancestry too. That may be from, what you call the British Isles, Europe. You know what I'm saying? It's a possibility that because they will be in exile as well. So there's a lot going on. So I'm just going to be able to build on law of occupation. All right. And this is from International Committee of the Red Cross. All right. You know what the Red Cross is? The Red Cross is the Knights of Templar. You know what I'm saying? So nothing changes, man. Let's get to it. What is occupation? Article 42 of the 1907 Hague Regulations, right, states that territory is considered occupied when it is actually placed under the authority of the hostile army. The occupation extends only to the territory where such authority has been established and can be exercised. All right. So pretty much what this is really saying is that as long as you're under an occupied by a hostile army, which of course you know already that the army here, all the armies over here are hostile. Okay, because why they're hostile? Because they always declare some type of war. All right, it's always a war going on somewhere, so that's hostile. Okay, and that's their excuse for not leaving. All right. According to the Common Article 2, the Geneva Conventions of 1949 apply to any territory occupied during international hostilities. They also apply in situations where the occupation of state territory meets with no armed resistance. Okay? So, who's under occupation? The indigenous people of the Americas, right? They're under occupation. And so far, the people on this side are not resisting occupation. Okay? So here it says they also apply in a situation where the occupation of a state territory meets no armed resistance, meaning there's no real war, like people here is not fighting back. So that's a form of occupation as well. Doesn't mean they have to be in combat. Okay? The legality of any particular occupation is regulated by the UN Charter and a law known as jus ad bellum, right? Once a situation exists which factually amounts to an occupation, the law of occupation applies, whether or not the occupation is considered lawful. All right, so like a de facto government, that's not so much lawful, right? Okay, everything is operating off presumptions, assumptions, and tacit agreements. All right. Therefore, for the applicability of the law of occupation, it makes no difference whether an occupation has received Security Council approval, what its aim is, or indeed whether it is called an invasion, which it is, liberation, administration, or occupation, as the law of occupation is primarily motivated by humanitarian considerations. It is solely the facts on the ground that determines its application. Okay? 2. When does the law of occupation start to apply? The rules of international humanitarian law relevant to occupied territories become applicable whenever a territory comes under the effective control of hostile foreign armed forces, even if the occupation meets no armed resistance and there is no fighting. Okay, people? So this is what the law of occupation allows. Okay, So law relevant to occupied territories become applicable whenever. So it's applicable whenever territory comes under effective control of hostile foreign armed forces. Okay, so this is another reason for your COVID and your whatever corona and all that stuff that's going on. Wear a mask, blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? That's a form of occupation, control. Okay, you're on a military occupation. All right, you're currently invaded by foreign philanthropists, eugenicists. You know, that's their agenda. That's the way they see. That's the vision they have for the people that they occupy, that they're oppressing. That's their mindset. Okay. The question of control calls up at least two different interpretations. It could be taken to mean that a situation of occupation exists whenever a party to a conflict exercises some level of authority or control within foreign territory. Okay? So, for example, advancing troops could be considered bound by the law of occupation already during the invasion phase of hostilities. This is the approach suggested in the ICRC's commentary to the Fourth Geneva Convention. Okay? An alternative and more restrictive approach would be to say that a situation of occupation exists only once a party to a conflict is in a position to exercise sufficient authority over enemy territory to enable it to discharge all of the duties imposed by the law of occupation. This approach is adopted by a number of military manuals. Okay? So you're 100% under military occupation, right, by a foreign corporation, or many corporations are subsidiaries of the corporation. These are what they use. These are military mechanisms that they're using to bound you to their of occupation they're using. All right. The duties of the occupying power are spelled out primarily in 1907 Hague Regulations, Articles 42 to 56, and the Fourth Geneva Convention, okay, as well as certain provisions of additional protocol and customary international humanitarian law. Agreements concluded between the occupying power and the local authorities cannot deprive the population or occupied territory of protection afforded by international humanitarian law, and protected persons themselves can in no circumstances renounce their rights. Okay, so even though you're under occupation, you still have rights, but you gotta identify as a part of the human family, or the nation's, part of the people. You know what I'm saying? You have to identify as a people, right? The main rules of the law applicable in case of occupation state that the occupant does not acquire sovereignty over the territory. Okay, so this is where they take you try to get your not to claim your autonomy, because if you claim your autonomy, you are in control of wherever you are. Just put it that way. All right. Occupation is only a temporary situation, and the rights of the occupant are limited to the extent of that period. Okay, so this is why every 10 years or so they have to implement something, chaos, right? So they could stay here, they could occupy here with the corrupt political system, the corrupt court system, the corrupt military. You know what I'm saying? They're not playing by the rules. Well, they're playing by the rules, but they're not being equitable. Okay, they're greedy. All right, it's greed. The occupying power must respect the laws in force in the occupied territory. So if you set your laws, right, for your clan, your people, they have to respect it. Okay, they can't tell you you can't do that, all right? Unless they constitute a threat to its security or an obstacle to the application of the international law of occupation. This is very important, people. You gotta, you all gotta understand what this is. This is remedy, okay? This is your way out if they try to, got the Constitution, right? Or got the Articles of Confederation, or got the Declaration of Independence. This is your remedy right here, right? Because you as a people, you are government. People is government, not corporations, all right? It's just construed that way because of the miseducation, all right? The occupying power must take measure to restore and ensure as far as possible public order and safety to the fullest extent of the means available to it. Occupying power must ensure sufficient hygiene and public health standards, as well as the provision of food and medical care to population under occupation. So they are obligated to make sure you're taken care of. No one should be homeless, okay? Everyone should have health care, all right? Well, the indigenous people here, the Indians, we should have free everything, hygiene. They're not supposed to disrupt your utilities, none of that, okay? And this is something that you could use maybe on somebody who's trying to cut your power, you know what I'm saying, cut your water off because of non-payment. How are you gonna pay? You're on an occupation. That's their duty, right? This is why the United States 18, I think it's 18 USC something, talks about the obligations of the United States, which is the bills, all of that, all right? Notes, bonds, all that, okay? That's for them to take care of because it's a trust, okay? Everything is in trust for your benefit. The population in occupied territory cannot be forced to enlist in the occupiers' armed forces, okay? So they can't force you in their army. Collective or individual forcible transfers of population from and within the occupied territory are prohibited, okay? They can't human traffic you, okay? Which is kidnapping you off the highways, taking your children, CPS, all of that. That's human trafficking, all right? They're not allowed to do that. Transfer of civilian population of the occupying power into the occupied territory, okay? That's when they're forcing you in their jurisdiction. They can't force you in their jurisdiction. Collective punishment is prohibited. The taking of hostages is prohibited. Reprisal against protected persons or their property are prohibited. The confiscation of private property by occupant is prohibited. The destruction of seizure of enemy property is prohibited unless absolutely required by military necessity during the conduct of hostilities. That's why you have to remain calm and do the right thing. Going out there and protesting won't solve anything because they're going to see you as hostile, okay? They want to get you riled up to get you out there to protest and burn down everything. And now they know they could bring out the National Guard, and that's it. Lights out. Cultural property must be respected. People accused of criminal offenses shall be provided with proceeding respecting international recognized judicial guarantees. For example, they must be informed of the reason for their arrest. You must be informed of the reason for your arrest, okay? Because you're according to the laws of occupation. Charged with a specific offense and given a fair trial as quickly as possible. They're not supposed to hold you against your will, okay? Not supposed to. You're supposed to see a judge right there and then, okay? Face your accuser right now. Personnel of International Red Cross, Red Crescent movement must be allowed to carry out their humanitarian activities. The ICRC, in particular, must be given access to all protected persons wherever they are, whether or not they are deprived of their liberty. So you see that big ship that with the Red Cross on it that's going through the Caribbean Sea and coming here and through the COVID-19. That's them trying to so-called assist you because you're under occupation, right? You're in war. What rights does the occupying power have regarding property and natural resources? Occupied territory. Private property cannot be confiscated by the occupier. Food and medical supplies may be requisitioned exclusively for the use of occupation forces and administration personnel themselves